Warning: this video contains details of real crime cases. Watch with caution. If you're a fan of true crime investigations and want to follow more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any case. A small town in the middle of Iowa was devastated by a scandal no one saw coming. And it all started with an apparently perfect teacher and a student just 14 years old. In the quiet suburb of Oak Ridge, nestled in the heart of Iowa, life typically unfolds with predictable ease. Children make their way to school each morning, parents hurry off to work, and the community hums with the familiar rhythms of small-town America. It's against this backdrop of normalcy that a shocking scandal erupted, shattering the town's sense of security and challenging its deeply held beliefs about trust and authority. At the center of this storm was Sarah Thompson, a 24-year-old English teacher at Oak Ridge High School. With her blonde hair, bright smile, and enthusiastic approach to teaching, Sarah was popular among students and respected by her colleagues. But beneath her polished exterior lay a troubled soul, plagued by a history of mental health issues and a distorted understanding of love and affection. Born on September 15, 1990, in Des Moines, Sarah grew up in what appeared to be a stable home. However, appearances can be deceiving. Her father, a successful businessman, was emotionally distant, often away on extended business trips. Her mother, Linda, worked as a beautician and struggled to maintain a sense of normalcy in the household. This emotional vacuum during Sarah's formative years would have far-reaching consequences on her ability to form healthy relationships. From an early age, Sarah battled depression and emotional instability. In high school, she was the archetypal popular girl, a cheerleader with a wide circle of friends. Yet, internally, she grappled with severe self-esteem issues and a desperate need for validation. At 13, Sarah entered into an abusive relationship with an older boy, an experience that would warp her perception of love and attention for years to come. As she progressed through her teens, Sarah's internal struggles manifested in increasingly self-destructive behaviors. She developed an eating disorder, abused alcohol, and made several suicide attempts. These issues came to a head in 2011 when her sister, Emily, was killed in a car accident caused by a drunk driver. The tragedy sent Sarah into a tailspin of grief and self-destruction that would take years to overcome. Despite her personal challenges, Sarah managed to graduate from college and secure a teaching position at Oak Ridge High. To her colleagues and students, she appeared to be a dedicated and enthusiastic educator, always willing to go the extra mile for her pupils. Little did they know that her unresolved emotional issues and distorted view of relationships would soon lead to a devastating breach of trust. The victim in this unfolding tragedy was Jason Miller, a 14-year-old 8th grader at Oak Ridge High. Jason was a typical teenager, a member of the school's soccer team, with a close group of friends and a loving family. He had no idea that his life was about to be irrevocably altered by the inappropriate attention of his English teacher. As the school year progressed, what began as seemingly innocent interactions between Sarah and Jason, casual conversations after soccer games, friendly chats during field trips, slowly evolved into something far more sinister. Sarah, struggling with her own emotional needs and inability to form healthy adult relationships, began to view Jason as a source of the affection and validation she so desperately craved. The stage was set for a scandal that would rock Oak Ridge to its core, leaving a trail of shattered lives and broken trust in its wake. As summer approached, no one could have predicted the dark turn of events that was about to unfold in this quiet Iowa town. The quiet streets of Oak Ridge became the backdrop for a series of clandestine meetings that would soon shatter the town's innocence. As summer approached in 2014, Sarah Thompson's relationship with Jason Miller took a dark and criminal turn. On a warm June evening, under the guise of a tutoring session, Sarah invited Jason to her apartment on the outskirts of town. Jason's cousin, unaware of Sarah's true intentions, accompanied them. While the cousin occupied himself with video games in the living room, Sarah led Jason to her bedroom. It was here, away from prying eyes, that she initiated sexual contact with the 14-year-old boy, crossing a line that would have severe repercussions for both of them. This encounter was not an isolated incident. Over the following weeks, Sarah and Jason's illicit relationship intensified. They met multiple times, often in Sarah's car parked in secluded areas around Oak Ridge. On one occasion, taking advantage of the empty school during summer break, Sarah engaged in sexual activities with Jason in her own classroom, a brazen act that highlighted the extent of her disregard for professional boundaries and the law. Sarah's actions were calculated and deliberate. She would send Jason text messages late at night, arranging their meetings and expressing her desires. She coached him on how to keep their relationship a secret, instilling in him a misplaced sense of loyalty and the false notion that their love was special and misunderstood by others. For Jason, the experience was a confusing mix of excitement and guilt. At 14, he was ill-equipped to understand the true nature of Sarah's actions or their potential long-term impact on his life. He found himself caught between his physical responses to Sarah's advances and a growing sense that what they were doing was wrong. The frequency and boldness of their encounters increased the risk of discovery. Sarah began to take greater risks, picking Jason up from soccer practice in full view of other students and parents. She attended his games, cheering him on from the sidelines with an enthusiasm that some began to find unsettling. As the summer progressed, Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic. She alternated between periods of intense affection for Jason and bouts of paranoia about being discovered. This emotional roller coaster only added to Jason's confusion and distress. Unbeknownst to Sarah and Jason, their secret was already unraveling. Jason's behavior had begun to change noticeably. He became withdrawn from his friends and family, his grades started to slip, and he exhibited mood swings that were out of character for the once outgoing teenager. The turning point came in late August, just before the new school year was set to begin. At a family barbecue, Jason's aunt overheard a phone conversation that raised her suspicions. The hushed tones, the hurried end to the call when she approached, and Jason's flustered demeanor all pointed to something amiss. Concerned, Jason's aunt shared her observations with his parents. Initially skeptical, they began to pay closer attention to their son's behavior. They noticed his newfound secrecy around his phone, his reluctance to discuss school, and the sudden appearance of gifts they hadn't given him. A new watch, expensive sneakers. As the pieces began to fall into place, a chilling realization dawned on Jason's parents. The truth they were about to uncover would shake their family to its core and send shockwaves through the entire community of Oak Ridge. The idyllic facade of Oak Ridge began to crumble as the truth about Sarah Thompson and Jason Miller's relationship came to light. The discovery of their illicit affair sent shockwaves through the community, forever altering the lives of those involved and challenging the town's sense of security. On a crisp September evening, Jason's mother, Karen Miller, sat her son down for a heart-to-heart conversation. With a mixture of concern and trepidation, she gently probed into the changes she had observed in his behavior. Initially defensive, Jason's resolve crumbled under his mother's patient questioning. In a moment of emotional turmoil, he confessed to the inappropriate relationship with his English teacher. Karen's world shattered as she listened to her son's tearful admission. Shocked and devastated, she immediately contacted her husband, Mark, who rushed home from work. The Millers spent a sleepless night grappling with the horrifying reality of what had happened to their son. The following morning, they made the difficult but necessary decision to involve the authorities. They reached out to Detective Laura Simmons of the Oak Ridge Police Department's Special Victims Unit. Detective Simmons, a veteran officer with years of experience handling sensitive cases, approached the situation with a blend of professionalism and compassion. Understanding the delicate nature of the case, Detective Simmons organized a discreet meeting with the Millers at their home. She listened intently as Jason, with his parents' support, recounted the details of his relationship with Sarah. The detective's gentle yet firm questioning helped piece together a timeline of events and gather crucial information. Recognizing the need for concrete evidence, Detective Simmons proposed a plan. With the Millers' consent and Jason's cooperation, they would attempt to obtain recorded conversations between Jason and Sarah. This approach, while emotionally taxing for Jason, would provide indisputable proof of Sarah's actions. Over the next few days, under careful police supervision, Jason engaged in monitored phone calls and text exchanges with Sarah. Unaware that she was being recorded, Sarah made several incriminating statements, admitting to the sexual nature of their relationship and expressing her fears of being caught. As the evidence mounted, Detective Simmons and her team moved swiftly to build their case. They obtained warrants to search Sarah's apartment and seize her personal devices. The searches yielded a trove of evidence, including explicit text messages, photographs, and diary entries detailing her obsession with Jason. On a quiet Sunday morning, when most of Oak Ridge was preparing for church services, police cars silently converged on Sarah Thompson's apartment complex. Detective Simmons, accompanied by several officers, approached Sarah's door. The sound of knocking shattered the morning calm, and moments later, a disheveled and confused Sarah opened the door. "Sarah Thompson," Detective Simmons announced firmly, "you're under arrest for sexual assault of a minor and related charges. You have the right to remain silent." As Sarah was led away in handcuffs, neighbors peered out of windows and gathered on sidewalks, whispering in shock. The arrest of a popular teacher on such serious charges was unprecedented in Oak Ridge's history. News of Sarah's arrest spread like wildfire through the town. Local media descended on Oak Ridge, transforming the quiet community into the center of a national scandal. The story quickly transcended local interest, catching the attention of major news networks and igniting debates across the country about teacher-student relationships and the sexual exploitation of minors. As Sarah Thompson sat in a holding cell, facing the consequences of her actions, the town of Oak Ridge grappled with the betrayal of trust and the loss of innocence that her crimes represented. The journey through the legal system was just beginning, promising to expose even more painful truths and test the resilience of all involved. As the investigation into Sarah Thompson's case deepened, the quiet town of Oak Ridge found itself thrust into the center of a media storm. Local and national news outlets descended upon the community, their vans and satellite trucks lining the streets near the courthouse and police station. The case had captured the nation's attention, sparking heated debates about teacher misconduct, the sexualization of minors, and the complexities of mental health. Behind the scenes, prosecutors and investigators worked tirelessly to build a solid case against Sarah. The evidence they had gathered was damning. Recorded conversations, explicit text messages, and physical evidence collected from Sarah's apartment all pointed to her guilt. However, as the legal proceedings unfolded, new layers of complexity emerged, challenging both the prosecution and the public's perception of the case. During her initial court appearances, Sarah's demeanor shifted dramatically from the confident teacher the community once knew. She appeared disheveled and disoriented, her once bright eyes now vacant and rimmed with dark circles. Her defense attorney, Mark Stevens, a seasoned criminal lawyer known for handling high-profile cases, began to construct a narrative that would attempt to explain, if not excuse, Sarah's actions. Stevens introduced expert testimony suggesting that Sarah suffered from bipolar disorder, a condition that, he argued, significantly impaired her judgment during the time of her relationship with Jason. Psychiatrists took the stand, detailing Sarah's history of mental health struggles, including her battles with depression, eating disorders, and the trauma of losing her sister. They posited that her manic episodes, characteristic of bipolar disorder, could have led to hypersexuality and impulsive behavior. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Elena Rodriguez, fought back against this narrative. They argued that mental illness, while a factor to consider, did not negate the deliberate and calculated nature of Sarah's actions. Rodriguez presented evidence of Sarah's attempts to conceal the relationship, including coaching Jason on secrecy, which she argued demonstrated awareness of wrongdoing. As the trial progressed, Jason's testimony became a pivotal moment. The now 15-year-old boy took the stand, visibly nervous but determined. His account of the relationship contradicted Sarah's claims of manic episodes driving her behavior. Jason described how Sarah had pursued him persistently, how she had been fully aware of the illegality of their relationship, and how this knowledge seemed to excite her further. The courtroom fell silent as Jason recounted the emotional turmoil he experienced, torn between his physical responses to Sarah's advances and his growing realization of the inappropriateness of their relationship. His testimony painted a picture of manipulation and abuse of power that left many in the courtroom, including some jurors, visibly moved. Outside the courthouse, the community of Oak Ridge grappled with the revelations emerging from the trial. Parents huddled in worried groups, discussing how to protect their children and rebuild trust in the school system. The school board held emergency meetings, implementing new policies and background check procedures to prevent similar incidents in the future. As the trial neared its conclusion, both the prosecution and defense prepared their closing arguments. The air in Oak Ridge was thick with tension and anticipation. The outcome of this case would not only determine Sarah Thompson's fate, but also set a precedent for how similar cases might be handled in the future. The small town, once known for its quaint charm and tight-knit community, now stood at the center of a national conversation about trust, power, and the protection of the vulnerable. As the jury prepared to deliberate, Oak Ridge held its collective breath, waiting for a verdict that would inevitably change the town forever. As the trial of Sarah Thompson reached its climax, an unexpected turn of events sent shockwaves through the courtroom and the town of Oak Ridge. Just as the jury was about to begin deliberations, Jason Miller's family approached the prosecution with a surprising request that would alter the course of the proceedings. Karen and Mark Miller, Jason's parents, had been wrestling with the emotional toll the trial was taking on their son. They watched as Jason, once a carefree teenager, became increasingly withdrawn and anxious with each day of testimony. The constant media scrutiny and the prospect of cross-examination had begun to affect his mental health severely. In a private meeting with District Attorney Elena Rodriguez, the Millers expressed their desire to end the trial prematurely. They feared that the prolonged legal battle and public exposure would cause irreparable harm to Jason's well-being. Their primary concern now was not justice in the traditional sense, but protecting their son and allowing him to begin the healing process away from the public eye. Rodriguez, though initially reluctant, understood the family's position. She recognized that in cases involving minors, the victim's welfare must be the paramount concern. After intense deliberations with her team and consultations with victim advocacy groups, Rodriguez made the difficult decision to approach the defense with a plea deal offer. The news of potential plea negotiations spread quickly through the courthouse. Reporters camped outside, speculating on the reasons for the sudden change in strategy. Inside, Sarah Thompson and her attorney, Mark Stevens, were presented with the prosecution's offer. In exchange for a guilty plea to reduce charges, Sarah would avoid a potential lengthy prison sentence. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Sarah Thompson stood before Judge Amelia Watkins. Gone was the confident demeanor she had displayed at the beginning of the trial. In its place was a woman who appeared broken, the weight of her actions evident in her slumped shoulders and tear-stained face. "Sarah Thompson," Judge Watkins began, her voice firm but not unkind, "you have chosen to plead guilty to the charges of second-degree sexual assault and endangering the welfare of a child. Do you enter this plea voluntarily and of your own free will?" Sarah's voice quivered as she responded, "Yes, Your Honor." The judge then outlined the terms of the plea agreement. Sarah would be sentenced to 3 years of house arrest, followed by 7 years of probation. She would be required to register as a sex offender, undergo intensive psychological treatment, and was prohibited from having any contact with minors or working in education again. As Judge Watkins delivered the sentence, a palpable mix of relief and disappointment rippled through the courtroom. Some felt the punishment was too lenient, while others saw it as a compassionate resolution that prioritized the victim's recovery. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, their reactions mixed as news of the plea deal spread. Some held signs denouncing what they saw as a miscarriage of justice, while others expressed support for the Miller family's decision to prioritize their son's well-being. In the days that followed, Oak Ridge found itself divided. The case had forced the community to confront uncomfortable truths about trust, power, and the vulnerability of children. School board meetings became forums for heated debates about policy changes and increased safeguards. As Sarah Thompson began her house arrest, fitted with an ankle monitor that would track her every move, the town of Oak Ridge was left to grapple with the aftermath of a scandal that had shaken it to its core. The journey of healing and rebuilding trust had only just begun. 5 years after the scandal that rocked Oak Ridge to its core, the town has settled into an uneasy new normal. The case of Sarah Thompson and Jason Miller, once the focus of national attention, has faded from the headlines, but its impact continues to reverberate through the community. Sarah Thompson, now 29, lives a reclusive life on the outskirts of a small town in Nebraska, far from the scrutiny of Oak Ridge. Her house arrest ended 2 years ago, but the stigma of her actions follows her like a shadow. Attempts to rebuild her life have been met with significant challenges. Employers, upon discovering her past, often terminate her employment, leaving her to survive on a series of short-term, low-wage jobs. Despite completing her mandated psychological treatment, Sarah struggles with depression and anxiety. She attends weekly therapy sessions and support group meetings for registered sex offenders, grappling with the consequences of her actions and the person she once was. Her marriage, unable to withstand the pressure of the scandal and its aftermath, ended in divorce shortly after her sentencing. Jason Miller, now 19, has faced his own battles in the years following the trial. Initially, he struggled with feelings of shame and confusion. His high school years marred by whispers and sidelong glances from peers who knew his story. With the support of his family and intensive therapy, Jason has made strides in his recovery, but the road has not been easy. After graduating from high school, Jason left Oak Ridge to attend college in California, seeking a fresh start away from the memories that haunted him in his hometown. He's chosen to study psychology, inspired by his own experiences to help others who have faced trauma and abuse. Though he still grapples with trust issues and anxiety in intimate relationships, Jason has found purpose in sharing his story at campus awareness events, helping to educate others about the complexities of abuse and the importance of consent. The Miller family, once pillars of the Oak Ridge community, relocated to a neighboring state 2 years after the trial. The constant reminders of the traumatic events proved too much to bear, and they sought a new beginning away from the whispers and stares of their former neighbors. Oak Ridge itself has undergone significant changes in the wake of the scandal. The school district implemented stringent new policies regarding teacher-student interactions, including mandatory reporting of any suspected inappropriate relationships and increased background checks for all staff. The case sparked a broader conversation about child safety, leading to community-wide initiatives focused on educating both children and adults about recognizing and preventing abuse. However, the town's reputation has been slow to recover. Oak Ridge, once known for its excellent schools, has seen a decline in new families moving to the area. The high school where Sarah taught has faced ongoing scrutiny, with parents remaining hypervigilant about their children's safety and interactions with teachers. As for the broader impact, the case has become a cautionary tale in teacher training programs across the country. Sarah and Jason's story is now part of ethics curricula, serving as a stark reminder of the sacred trust placed in educators and the devastating consequences when that trust is betrayed. The events in Oak Ridge have left an indelible mark on all involved, serving as a somber reminder of the complexities of human behavior, the vulnerability of youth, and the long-lasting impact of abuse. As the town continues to heal and move forward, the echoes of this tragic chapter in its history serve as a constant reminder of the importance of vigilance, compassion, and the protection of the innocent.